Welcome to Conversations with David Ibarra. Today I'm excited to have our guest, Salt Lake Councilwoman Victoria Petro Eschler. Welcome to our program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, great. Let's get started. I can't wait for this conversation. I want you to open up by telling our audience a little bit about you, your history.
So I got to Salt Lake in 2013. I, at the time, just brought one kid across the country with me. I'm an East Coaster originally, but my dad was in the Army, so I grew up in Germany and Italy and all over. And since getting here, I have gone on to have two other children, adopted and adult. I've run a small nonprofit in music and have really fallen in love with my home on the West Side and have just been able to dig deep and grow and find my place here in a really unique way.
Perfect. Tell me a little bit about your nonprofit music.
So it's called Salty Cricket, and the idea is using music to build community with people who historically find themselves on the margins. So our biggest program is an after-school, free orchestra-based program for kids on the West Side. Combined, Black and Latino performers make up less than 4% of the international classical music workforce. So it was a pipeline for kids who might want to see themselves in that profession. But also, in an orchestra, a violin and a bassoon are never going to sound the same or play the same number of notes. But you have to be a really excellent violinist, and you have to be a really excellent bassoonist. And when we're all excellent at what we do and we come together, then we can create something that we're not capable of doing by ourselves. And so the point is just to help young people find their unique role and claim it with power and contribute to our culture in a powerful way.
And where is this located?
Wallace Stegner Academy, down near Redwood and 800 South.
Perfect. Well, thank you. Well, now I want to shift to the campaign.
Yes.
What got you thinking, I want to be councilwoman of Salt Lake City?
So I have a master's in political science, and when my predecessor James said he wasn't running for re-election, it piqued my interest. But then COVID happened, and I homeschooled 3 kids and lived through that and said, maybe I'll take a break. And then about January 2021, there was a rail fire over near the old Garfield rail yard. And that morning on our Facebook page in the community, there were people going, why do I have a headache? What's falling out of the sky under my car? What's that smell? We all knew something was going on. No information from anywhere. About 4 days later, a representative from the city was on NPR and said, it was just steam burning off the bridge. And, if constituents wanted information, they could have checked the fire department Twitter feed. And I realized at that point, communicating with my neighbors on the West Side is an art form, and the city hasn't mastered it. And I'm uniquely positioned to bring that skill set, plus the other skills I've already honed through my education and experience. And it was time for me to stand up. I was uniquely suited to this moment in history.
Perfect. And I shouldn't use my sarcasm yet because we're just 3 minutes into the program. But you say the city hadn't honed in their communication skills. Many would say, first you have to have communication skills.
I like to take a strengths-based approach to all things.
Perfect. Because there is definitely many within the city that believes our administration has isolated themselves, and they don't have a reputation of talking openly and honestly with whomever wants to talk to them. It seems to be isolated, which is concerning to most of us.
So when I was campaigning and on the outside looking in, that definitely was my perception as well. I think since getting in, I've started to realize, they got in and COVID happened. An earthquake happened the first day we were locked down. A windstorm happened, social unrest like we've not seen in our generation. Any one of those things could destabilize any municipality. All 4 of those things in quick succession definitely did that. I think the thing that I'm drawing strength and encouragement from is this election was looked at as a referendum to get back to the business, to reach out significantly.
I can't help myself. Councilwoman.
Yes, sir.
Bull. Any leader that has skills would overcome all 4 of them at once. Us in business, everybody's going to lose money. We didn't. We had the very best year in our history. Why? is because we said we were going to. We're going to figure out how do we serve our clients during COVID? How do we serve them during lockdown? What are the special needs? Get out there and communicate. And there's cities all across America that did that. But our administration would open up saying, woe is me. I had COVID. I had an earthquake. I had this. I had that. That's what leadership is. And you know what? You wouldn't have done that.
I'm hoping that I'm hoping that I'm never tested on that magnitude and don't have to make good on that. Yeah. I think that the skills that I bring, this is why I think you and I have talked about this before. This is the essence of why representation is important. Yeah. For those of us who grew up in margins without any option but to figure out how to make a bad hand play well, it is a unique skill set that we bring to the table.
No doubt. No doubt. Hey, you know what? Whatever you're dealt is what you're dealt. You go forward. The one thing you do is go forward. You don't open up every speech with saying, because of this, because of this, because of this, lowering the expectation of the people that you serve so that it meets your deliverable so you can say, see, I did my... No. Good is good. Very good is very good. Great is great. And boy, I hope we can have an administration that aims for great. Because if you do, you get great. I want to shift for a minute and talk about, I'm going to go all over the board, but this is just what really tickled me about you. And I'm really excited about having West Side leadership. You know, oftentimes it's been said that the administration has not served the West Side, and I've heard it since I've lived here. But the fact of the matter is the administration, in my view, is lost, lacks leadership. And what excites me, I believe the leadership is going to come from the two new council members from the West Side, you and Alejandro.
Yes.
That's exciting. Tell me, and the reason I believe this, everybody that's listening, this is why I believe this. I want to move to the inland port. Mm-hmm. And you were kind of shut out on the inland port. And then the legislature went into session. How did you get those folks to talk to you? And they said they wouldn't, and they didn't want to talk to anybody from Salt Lake.
So this was a learning experience for me from top to bottom. I've always done citizen lobbying. I have never done it as part of a deliberative body like a council. And so I had known that there was talk that they were going to take the votes away, the municipal votes. And the state legislature has the right to do that. They just weren't going to do it without knowing what it meant to me and without being uncomfortable about it. So I was at an economic outlet summit, and Representative Schultz was presenting at it, and I was in an outfit that I hated. I was late, my hair was a mess, and I was completely not confident about anything. But I walked out and I stalked him in the lobby, and I approached him with my hand out held, and I was like, Representative Schultz, my name is Victoria. I'm the new council person from District 1 where the port is going to be, and you want to know me? And I like verbally vomited on him, essentially. And essentially I told him how important this was, that this is going to be the single biggest economic development. This could be the single biggest environmental deterioration. This could be an infrastructure disaster, all of these things, and it's going to impact me and my neighbors. And we are the people who had the COVID rates that were twice the state average because we're the people who keep this running. We are the blue-collar workers who go to the meat packing plants. Mm-hmm. We work on the railroads. We clean the hospitals. We never quarantined. And now for this project to go here and impact us the most, we need them to include us. So it took a long time. I had no idea how to lobby as part of a body. And even the city stumbles because you have an executive who's used to functioning alone, and then you have our deliberative body, and trying to merge those is a really awkward thing.
So how did you get people to talk to you?
I just kept talking.
You did something special though too. I heard about this like the day it happened. Tell me about how did you entice someone to meet with you?
Oh, I fed them. So this idea that, I'm Italian and Latina, and I love my cultures very deeply. And one of the things I've been taught to do since a young girl is to cook, and I love to cook. And so on Valentine's Day, we took key stakeholders. I made rice and beans and plátanos maduros, and Ana Valdemoros from District 4 made empanadas from Argentina.
Right.
And we went and we took handwritten notes and said, we appreciate you on this day for that, and we want to work with you. And we kept the door open, and we made sure that they knew. I think so much of it is just about humanity, right? Yeah. And nothing is more human than eating a meal together and feeding one another.
You know, and some could say, you know, you and Anna used a mom's approach. and I'll tell you what, every one of us, most people, their first mentoring coach is who? Mom. And every representative, when somebody approaches them like a mom, they don't know why, but they
get a
pay
hearing.
attention. They're going to be polite, and they know what that means. So congratulations. and some of the representatives that you approached were saying, we didn't expect. Here is Salt Lake City that doesn't want to talk to anybody, is our feeling. Mm-hmm. And then we have some that wanted to feed us, and yes, they had something to say, but you went from, I don't want to be irritated by anybody on the council, to, I really want to listen to her. I want that councilwoman. I went from, this is one person, I won't say his name, said, I went from absolutely negative to a absolute fan. So congratulations for your communication skills.
Well, and now we do the other part. You start off with feeding people, but then you come with the argument, and we understand how to make the argument. So every day there is an argument to be made for workers' rights protections, and it's an economic argument, and we can make it well. There's an economic argument to be made for environmental protections and infrastructure investment and workforce development, and I'm making those every day now because I'm at the table.
And I'd almost like to see us get to the point that we have a comprehensive conversation. It doesn't have to be labeled an argument.
No.
You know,
No.
Good jobs,
Yes.
state-of-the-art jobs. That, you know, when I went to, I think it was Statler
Rail
and visited it, I took the associates aside. Hey, how's it really here to work? You wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, they
It's
love it there.
unbelievable. How much more money do you, $4 more an hour. $4 more an hour.
Yep.
Well, that's a lot of money that somebody that is an hourly individual at a bottom tier level is all of a sudden, that makes big differences. Mm-hmm. Those are the kind of jobs we can have,
Yes.
should have. And with your help, the folks at the Inland Port will see that there's a commonality between good council leadership and not obstructionists that just say, not here. Not me, and want to argue. We can have good conversations.
Yep. And they know that I'm always the soft touch. I'm always coming at it, but I have good reasons why I'm the soft touch.
Well, I don't know that you're a soft touch. When you first came over and you were running for office, I can remember I put on my I was going to see just how tough you were, so I wasn't even smiling. I don't think I was shooting questions left or right. And I got done and you walked out and I was laughing. I said, damn. She's going to be good.
Thank you. I appreciate your confidence.
She's going to be good. Matter of fact, give her 2 checks. I think she's going to be that good. You weren't the candidate that most thought would win. Mm-mm. So how did you turn that around?
I have this firm belief that I don't need anyone to be a bad candidate for me to be the right candidate. I didn't run for this because I want a new title. I didn't run for this because it was just available. I ran for it because I had this overarching understanding that I was in the right place at the right time for the right job. After that, it was just making the case to my neighbors. And I have neighbors who support me from every color on the political spectrum. And really what our city is craving is what you've described is responsiveness. This feeling that they're not alone, this feeling that the pothole in front of their house is an important pothole, the feeling that the compassion fatigue they're feeling for the homeless is valid, and the feeling that the homeless will be humanely treated. All of those things, and what I did is prove to people that I heard them, and I reflected to them their priorities and made sure that they understood I had the credentials, the experience, and the passion to take it.
And that part doesn't hurt, that you have the intellectual capacity, you have the leadership capacity, you have the listening skills capacity. Oh, you're right. You were the perfect person at the perfect time. What were some of the things that when you took office surprised you?
I hate the formalities. I hate everyone calling me councilwoman and doing all that. There's one person I've wanted to call me councilwoman because she was so disrespectful to me in the middle of a meeting. I wanted to look at her and be like, that is Councilwoman Petro Eschler to you. But it's literally the only time it's happened so far. I hate the reliance on the formalities as deference. When the way you show deference to me is by hearing me when I communicate priorities and getting to work on them. Mm-hmm. And so it is a little bit of a cross-cultural competency. I'm stepping into a culture I haven't embraced before. So for me, I've had to learn how to do that. You know, I spoke out in a meeting without asking chairs permission, you know, things like that are inadvertently offensive to the rest of the org.
To the stuffies.
and I guess there is a case for it's not our dinner table. We should, we should have regular order. But that part of it really shocked me. The other thing that shocked me is how supportive our council office and staff are. So I went in I've never had anyone, if I say, I want to do this, someone go, okay, just show up and it'll be done. I've always said, I want to do this. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's how I'm going to raise the money for it. And I've done everything soup to nuts. And I have a staff now, I talk about things like, the rail crossings we're talking about, clearing them out. I have people doing research on the rail crossings and providing me with data, and really like they dropped me off at meetings because I didn't have time to do the parking and, things like that are, it's a big culture adjustment for me to have support to do the thing I find important.
Well, it is said that in society, and I think in business, in public sector, private sector, it's the same. But 87% of folks just drift through, day to day, and only 13% really are the changers, that are the deliverers. And it reminds me of a quote I heard often, and I heard early in my life and use often. Some see things as they are and say, why? And then it's followed by, woe is me. Others dream dreams that never were and say, why not? Why not me? And you're definitely the second. It
can be very frustrating at times, but yes, I am.
Let's talk about some of the pressing issues of our capital city. What you see as, obviously everybody runs on the same rhythm of words. I want a walkable, livable, safe city. And frankly, I heard our mayor give herself an A on that. And frankly, if you walk around our city, you live down in our city, there's no way that we can say an A in safe. It's an F. There's no way we can say livable. It is a D or an F. And walkable, we probably are more in the mid area, is certainly walkable if we didn't have all of the safety and other issues. But what do you see as the issues of our capital city?
So from my neighborhood, we have these dueling pressures. We have gentrification pushing down on the top. We've always been the home of the blue-collar worker. Mm-hmm. We've been the place where generational wealth, especially for recent immigrants, has been able to be generated through home ownership. And now that's being taken away. We're going to go from somewhere close to 55% home ownership to 35% with all these new housing projects. And the price point for those former homes is not attainable. Even to, let's not even talk about, people who are stocking shelves at Smith's working on it. Even teachers and firemen and police people are not able to qualify for these mortgages right now. So that's a huge problem, this feeling that not only am I insecure and unable to secure a future for myself, but my kids certainly don't have a future here. The other pressure is the feeling of lack of safety that pushes up from below. And I have really compassionate neighbors who are good humans, and we all look at the people who are homeless and want better for them. But the lack of viable options. I'm somewhat optimistic right now because of HB 440. Mm-hmm. We have more participation from other municipalities than we've ever had. And I
help bring the audience up to speed. Is a new piece of legislation that requires municipalities to come together and make certain decisions concerning homelessness.
So what happens is that we, in order to never be in the position we were in this year, which is that in the end of November, we're voting on a last-minute resort to try to open an emergency shelter that doesn't open until February.
Right.
The whole year, the Council of Mayors meets together, and they have to have a site determined with a plan proposed to the state for an emergency winter shelter by September. If they don't have a site picked and it's not approved, then we go into an emergency mode where the state will automatically decide where that shelter will go. But in addition, they're going to flex up our resource centers 25% above the capacity they currently have to take in overflow as well. And this is problematic for several reasons. When we decentralized and put in those resource centers, we made a commitment with our land use authority to those neighbors that we would keep those numbers. And now the state is going to be able to preempt that. That's a violation of trust to those neighbors who already sustain an undue burden.
Right.
But now we've never been able to bring other municipalities to the table and say, this is your burden too. Not when there's green spaces to be built and other beautiful things you could do with your money instead.
Right.
And what the state has effectively done here is incentivize all of these other states coming to the table and doing their fair share. We've created a process that protects some of the more nuanced details, but I'm feeling optimistic. We currently have 9 different sites possible, and we're not even in June yet.
Right.
We've never had this many options before.
Well, it is interesting to have pushed the process, mandated it, and now all of a sudden you don't get the luxury of pointing and blaming. If you don't participate, then you're going to have to explain to everyone else why you gave the authority to the state. It's almost a similar position we got ourselves into with the inland port.
Yes.
We didn't provide a plan. We didn't provide a plan. And then finally they provided a plan, and now we're not on offense. We were on defense, and obviously it happened wrong. It could have been better, but it's done.
Yes.
And now we're into the inland port. But before we leave our homelessness, tragedy, and to me, I'll often talk about the shelter resistant, which is a population base, either some troubled with drug addiction and a mental illness. It is the saddest place a human being can be. But to leave them saying it's okay is just absolutely inhumane.
Yes.
And that's where leadership has to step in and make some choices. That camping, as you drive here, you've seen all the camp. I mean, there's camps at downtown Main Street. I walk at 5:30, 6 o'clock every morning, and there's people just sleeping everywhere and trash everywhere. And it's our gateway to Utah.
North Temple is that too.
Yes.
The people riding tracks in from the airport, that's their first acquaintance with Utah, and it's tragic. I'm optimistic that we're pushing forward through this, but the other thing I'm working on is we have no metrics for success on this. Yeah. Providers can come and say, well, we're at 98% full, and they are, but that to me isn't a metric for anything except how many bodies are in a building.
We said resource centers, and we should stop calling them resource centers because they're not. They're shelters. Right. They were supposed to be resource centers. And there was a study done by Gail Miller and Mayor Palmer DePaulis. I read it's quite thick. Man, it was in depth. 9 reasons that people end up in this horrible situation. And a resource center was for the assessment of why, and a program customized to how are we going to help, and then into affordable housing, the Other Side Village, or something of that nature, that you learn to become a member of a community with the goal to shrink the number needing beds, not to expand it. But we can't seem to get into the cure. We seem to just get into the more beds. And then if we put a shelter in a neighborhood, why there isn't 2 police officers 24 hours a day walking in front to ensure that it's the safest neighborhood.
Right.
Instead, we've let it deteriorate.
We have to address this. And that's why I created this whole conceptual model that I'm working off of, because there are so many things that we're not doing, just focusing on how do we get people in out of the cold, which is important, but we cannot live there. We will never get out of the crisis if we're always just putting Band-Aids on a flesh wound.
Well, I tell you what, we've skipped a lot of things, and we're going to end our program here with a couple comments that I have. And I probably shouldn't say what I'm going to say, but I probably shouldn't say a lot of things that I say.
I think it's how you endear yourself to people.
You ought to consider running for mayor.
I wouldn't rule it out in the future. I'm on a steep learning curve right now. I have so much to learn. And honestly, I know this will grate against you. The mayor and I have actually created a really high trust, vulnerable way to communicate with each other. And I am learning so much from watching her experiences. And she has been generous with me. But I am optimistic that if I refine in the future.
There's a difference between you and Mayor Mendenhall.
In the future, if I refine and learn my lessons, I would.
You already have a lesson learned. Believe you can do it something different than what is. And don't explain what is as if it's good. You really, there's an election coming up. You really ought to think about it.
No, too soon. District 1 deserves more.
Okay, well, they would have more. I'm going to stay with this until no. Thank you so much for coming and participating in the program today. I really wish you the greatest. I think you're going to be a great leader, and you're a good person. Thank you for being on our program.